Danny Boyle and Cillian Murphy are back 23 years later in the post-apocalyptic thriller 28 years later. I know, that was low-hanging fruit. Okay, first off, I've never seen 28 Days Later, nor 28 Weeks Later, so come at me in the comments. But feel free to use this review as a barometer for whether or not you actually need to see the first two before you see this third installment in the franchise, 28 Years Later. 28 Years Later stars Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Jodie Comer, Ralph Fiennes, and the incredible child actor that holds the majority of this film on his back, Rocco Haines. I'm an idiot. His name is not Rocco Haines. The main actor's name is Alfie Williams. I'm going to refer to him as Jimmy in this video by mistake, but it's Spike. There is a character named Jimmy played by Rocco Haines in this movie, but that's an entirely different subplot. Bear with me throughout this review. I apologize. We're getting back to it. It's 28 years later, and this story kicks off on an island off the coast of the mainland. On this island is a community of survivors who've built a new society amongst themselves, focusing in on one specific family, his dad, Jamie, and his sickly mother, Isla. Our main character has finally come of age. He's 12 years old, and his dad is going to take him across to the mainland to hunt. The way they commute to the mainland I thought was really cool. Because they're on an island, they're separated by a large body of water, but there is a causeway that stretches across this body of water, and during low tide, the causeway is usable, and during high tide, the causeway is essentially flooded, and you can't make your way across it, which of course ends up playing a part in some suspenseful moments later on in the film. So Jimmy and his dad set off to go hunt infected across on the mainland, and I really like how they parallel the idea of hunting the infected with hunting deer. There's all this really creepy red imagery of doe-eyed infected wandering around aimlessly in the forest, and bright red photography that's really effective in setting up the fear with these creatures. And as we get introduced to the first infected in this film, I love how they use this absolutely grotesque practical makeup and design to portray these characters. Honestly, throughout the film, there's very little CG as far as the infected are concerned, or if it's used, it never takes us out of the film. And to me, I found the editing techniques to be really fun. We'd see them launch an arrow, and as it hits the head of an infected, it would like cross cut to like 3 different angles and then hold on a frame for longer, and we'd see the arrow go into the head. It was really flashy, fun, frenetic editing that would happen, and this would happen during other action scenes later in the film as well. You'll have to let me know if this is a staple of the 28 Days Later franchise, or if this is just something that only happens in this movie. Either way, I thought it was really stylistic and made the kill scenes a little extra gruesome. Really, the whole first portion of the story is this segment with Jimmy and his dad across on the mainland. And seeing them actually go through the thought process of survival, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson is really reinforcing his son and teaching him how to behave in conflict. It was really well executed and made me also feel like I was learning how to take down infected along with him. But it was a clever lens to view this world through, to see it through the eyes of a 12-year-old boy as he's actually experiencing these things for the first time. It allowed for explanatory dialogue from his dad as he would actually educate his son on the rules of the world, and I thought that was a really clever storytelling tool because it was an organic way to give the son information, which in turn gives us, the audience, information, which really helped me, being that I'm unfamiliar with the franchise. Anyway, as the movie continues, more characters are introduced, such as Ralph Fiennes' character, who is a standout in the film, and there's a lot more emphasis on Jimmy's relationship with his mom, Isla, and their connection is incredibly heartwarming. In fact, the character work overall is a great strength of this film. Its narrative really focused in on the familial relationship between these three, and it wasn't so black and white or generic. It was textured and gray, and there were really interesting character turns that happened throughout the film. I was honestly hesitant to go see this movie because I'm not really that into post-apocalyptic movies. There are great ones, but oftentimes for me, they can feel a bit meandering or slow-paced, or very one-note, or lacking depth. That was not the case at all for this one. Not only was the character and story so rich, the editing style added so much other texture to the film. I mentioned it earlier with the doe-eyed deer sequence and everything, but there are many sequences like that in the movie where it just cross-cuts to other imagery and sound effects kind of come in and music starts to take over, contemporary music like rock music or pop music, but it feels right. It always feels like it's letting us inside of the head of one of the characters and how they're viewing the situation. I found it to be a very impactful tool that also kept kept the movie very engaging and stylized. You can definitely say this is not a boring movie. I don't know much about Danny Boyle's personal life, but the film felt like a personal journey. It's as if the series has now been recontextualized through personal turmoil in his own life, and he brought that into this series. Like, there's just a heart at the center of this story, and it swells to this really beautiful moment towards the end of the film that honestly is so heartwarming. It actually had me crying a little bit, and I did not anticipate at all that I would even like this movie, let alone be crying in a post-apocalyptic zombie movie. So there's something really rich and emotional here that struck a chord with me, and it transcended into something beyond just being a movie. Anyway, if I have any criticism for the movie, though, I did feel like in its very final segment, kind of felt like the movie stubbed its toe in the sense that it was carrying all of this emotion and weight, and it could have carried right through into the credits for me, but it had to do some work to set up a sequel. It's a minor gripe, but that's the world we live in now. We got to get that tease for the next movie. So, oh, and also in some of the horror action scenes, we'd see characters or a character running away from infected, and it would feel like the infected are getting closer and closer, and then we'd cut to a wide shot and we'd see, okay, there's this much distance between them. Cut back to a close-up and they're getting closer and closer. Cut to the wide and okay, suddenly they're farther apart again. Felt like the infected aren't really gonna catch the characters. I don't know, it's the kind of thing that happens in a horror movie where there's this really close call and suddenly the heroes kind of get out of it because of editing. You know? However, I do think the horror, for the most part, is very suspenseful in the movie. In fact, these giant infected characters are intimidating as hell. So, oh, I didn't even talk about how gruesome and gory this movie is. It's like 80s The Thing level status, where it's all practical effects, so it kind of hits a little deeper, where you're like, oh, God, I shouldn't be looking at that. It feels too real. Anyway, I'm kind of trailing off here. The VFX were great. The editing was great. The music, the soundtrack was great. And the heart of the whole movie, the characters were phenomenal. I did not anticipate to love this movie as much as I did. I'm giving this 4.5 out of 5 skulls. Yeah, pretty damn good. All right, guys, if you saw 28 Years Later, let me know what you think in the comments. Check out my letterbox. I review the movies first there. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.